Welcome to the Family Brand Show. We're Chris and Melissa Smith of FamilyBrand.com, husband and wife, parents of 5, and we want to help you take back your family and to live life on your terms.
And we know being a family can feel really overwhelming. Parents tell us they feel like they're being pulled in a million different directions. It's so challenging to navigate the uncertainty and all the chaos that's happening in the world right now.
And that's why we want to bring you every single week actionable tips and strategies that you can implement in your daily life to become a better parent, to become a better spouse, and to build a stronger family. And look, there's never been a better time and a more important time than right now to take back your family. You can define what your family stands for, or the world is going to do it for you. And the world needs strong families now more than ever. And it starts right here with your family. Summertime and the living's easy.
Chris said he was going to kick off this episode, and
It's just one of my favorite songs, Summer. Sublime.
No, that's how I was going to go.
I just was like, it's summertime, folks. Hopefully your summer's kicked off and the living's easy, or maybe it's not easy, but summertime is here and it is kicked off.
Or maybe it's too easy,
Which
is what we're going to talk about today.
Yeah, maybe it's too easy for your kids in the summer. I had a friend one time who said, yeah, make sure you're not raising trust fund kids, but there's no trust. And he went on then to talk about this idea of raising children who are entitled, whether there's a trust or not. And he said, I think a lot of parents are inadvertently, not meaning to, they're raising trust fund kids, but there's not going to be a trust to come save them. So essentially they're raising children who maybe have never had to provide for themselves or even think for themselves to a certain degree. And everything's just been given to them and provided for them. And they've been shielded from a lot of things. And I know that every parent, most parents have the desire to give their kids more than maybe they had or in some way. I also think it's been interesting to talk to a lot of successful entrepreneurs that came from very little, like came from pretty humble circumstances or sometimes even really difficult circumstances. And when I asked them, hey, did your growing up with humble beginnings or rough beginnings have anything to do with like the hunger and the drive that gave you to become successful? They're like, oh yeah, absolutely. Without that, I would have never created what I have. And then I always ask a follow-up question, and I say, so how much of that same childhood you had are you modeling for your own kids? I'm fascinated, and every time they're like, well, I'm not, and I think about that all the time. Like it hits me that had I not had to work for what I had and sacrifice what I had, I would have never created this. But then in a lot of ways, I'm not making my kids work for, and I think every parent, wrestles with this. We all wrestle with this. Like, how do I raise kids who are hardworking and take initiative and gritty and tough and not entitle them? But also, how do I still provide things for them and give them good experiences and a good life? So this is a conversation Melissa and I are in and have been in. And it seems like everywhere we go, maybe we're attracting it.
Maybe it's just like the vibe of, summer. You're figuring stuff out.
Because there's lots of parents who want to talk to us about it. Like we're in the sauna at the gym. And we're by no means, by the way, coming to you with all of the answers and like experts in this, so we figured it out. I think we're trying some things that are working. We've certainly done some things that we don't think have worked. And I tell you this, we're committed to raising kids, at least as I can tell. Melissa might say something different. I believe we're committed to raising kids who are confident, kind, hardworking, capable, and yet we still want to give them good things and not always getting it right.
Totally. And I want to jump back to this sauna conversation that we were having with someone recently, because it had me feel like, oh, maybe it's not just me and Chris who are, I would say, struggling a little bit with this right now. Like, what does the summer look like? Our kids are busy with their sports. How do we balance sports with getting a job? And, what does that look like? And how late do they sleep in? And what time do they wake up? And
what age should they get a job?
Totally. And so we were talking to this other mom in the sauna, and her kids are actually very similar to our kids' ages. And it was just so funny listening to her. I was like, oh my gosh, everything she's saying right now, like me too. So I imagine we're not the only two people in the world. And so I said, you are feeling all this. So I told Chris, we have to talk about this on the podcast. But some of the things like that she was processing in front of us that I was agreeing with is just like, I've ruined my kids. Like, he doesn't know how to work, and I've totally failed him, and he doesn't know how to make himself food, and he doesn't know how to do a job, well done. And just like all of these things that that's probably not even true, but it's like you just get so frustrated in the moment with worrying, especially as my kids have like reached later teenager age. You start thinking like, have I taught them everything? Do they know everything? Are they going to be successful? Like, do they have what it takes? Whereas I feel like when they're younger, it's like, oh, we have plenty of time. Like they're young, they're going to figure this out. But as our kids have gotten older, I do find myself sometimes my mind spiraling to that place of like, this is it. This is the last summer to teach them everything. We're so far behind. Which again, it's not even true, but that's where my mind goes sometimes.
I will say too, it's fun to get. I don't think you were at the gym with me the other day when I was in the sauna. The same friend of ours came in and we were talking. And what I shared was, but sometimes you get these glimpses. And for us, it's usually outside of our house from other people that give you some hope. Like, oh, okay, maybe they are going to be hardworking, productive, contributing members of society. Maybe they are learning some things from us. And we had a situation where three of our kids went on a trip together, and it was physically demanding, very hard. And over the course of the weeks after, a number of adults who were on that trip as leaders came like to Melissa and I into like together or one at a time and basically acknowledged like, oh, your kids did so good and they're such hard workers, and we're like, oh, awesome, like. And what our friend said in the sauna is that she had heard this woman talk one time but that's not like, that shouldn't shock you as a parent, because your home is where your kids should feel the most comfortable, kind of like letting their hair down and like, but as long as like when they're out in public, amongst others, that they're being responsible and being hardworking. And so sometimes, yeah, Melissa and I do get discouraged, and then you get these glimpses at your house, but you also hear things that make you feel like, okay, like maybe we're doing all right.
Totally. So some practical things that Chris and I have been talking about that were like, these would be good conversations to have if you haven't had them yet, or maybe haven't revisited them for a while. Because I think that's the thing too, is you can have these conversations once, but it's like the reminding and the continuing to be in them. For example, I think there's a little bit of a question mark for some of our kids, like what do mom and dad pay for versus what do I pay for? And do I pay for a certain percentage of the things that I want? And then, what we did for the longest time was pay for what you need, and then we'll go 50-50 with you on those if there's things that you want. But as our kids have gone older, I'm like, that needs to be revisited, because at some point it's going to be like, does that just go on indefinitely? But we haven't even had that conversation. Like, okay,
the kids are 40 years old and they're sending you a Venmo request for half their mortgage.
This is the thing.
I want this, and you got to pay for half of it.
And as they've gotten older, I feel like obviously it would just make sense that they are moving into independence. And so it's like naturally they're going to start paying for more of those things, like if they don't already, their cell phone or their car, their gas, or I think that's up to every family individually to decide what is going to be paid for. But we're having those conversations right now because I think in some ways we've erred on like maybe providing too much, and they don't feel like motivated as much, that they need to like hustle and grind and earn money. I wish, being totally transparent, sometimes I'm like, I don't know if we maybe erred on the side too much of providing too much.
Yeah, and here's the thing I'll say too on that is, I've heard lots of different parents' opinions on their approach with this. We pay for this at this age till this, and you pay for this, and I think what's maybe less important in this is the approach, and what's more important is that you have an agreed upon approach and that you follow it. Like, that's the part that I think we've been decent at, but also we've gotten in trouble at times. So I think the more that you can think through and have these really clear agreements with each other and with your children, so just kind of like everyone's on the same page, like there's no surprises, and then the consistency of sticking to that approach. I know some friends who they tell their kids, like from a young age, like, hey, if you want a car at 16, you got to pay for it, but we'll pay for all of your fuel, we'll pay for your insurance, but like it's really clear. And I know parents who take a completely different approach. I will say this though, a big, I think, realization for me. And I know this for my own life, and I know this in the world, but sometimes it's amazing how easy it is to forget, like in our own home. And this, just the principle that like when much is expected of you, you have a greater likelihood to like rise to it. And when very little is expected of you, you have a really great likelihood to rise only to that. Even, at 44 years old, if I knew that there was a car that was going to be provided for me no matter what, a phone that was going to be provided for me no matter what, a home, I would hope that I would still have the initiative to, though, like, go out and get it and make it happen. But there's a real likelihood that I may not, which totally makes sense. Because whether I do or I don't, it doesn't impact anything. And we were also in one of these same days, we were sitting in the sauna, and there was another woman in there with us, and she was like, hey, I don't mean to like butt in, and I was like, no, please. And she was like, well, now that you're saying this, I realize like I better communicate with start sharing some of this with my kids, because my oldest is almost 13. She goes, my parents told me from the time I was little, hey, we just don't have a lot of money. And I think they would have taken this stance whether they had money or not, but it's like, hey, they were almost doing it out of kindness and fairness to me and saying, hey, we don't have a lot of money. So if you want to have a phone when you're 16, if you want to have a car, if you want like spending money for school clothes, you'll need to get a job. And she knew that was, so she's like, well, again, there was a lot that it was going to be expected of me that if I was to do it. And so I think there's nothing that forces action like necessity. So her choice was either I go without a car, a phone, and money for clothes, or if I want those things, I have to do something about it. And I think that is just such a profound, because I think sometimes as parents, and I think we've done this, I know I've done this, it's like I want sometimes my kids to take more initiative and take more ownership and have more drive, but I've actually not created the conditions for it to be optimal to do that. Mm-hmm. And then it's really easy for me to like get frustrated with my kids. And really I should probably be as equally frustrated with myself of like, well, what kind of conditions have you created? And are your kids aware of it? And I'm not saying they'll be happy with it. I'm sure this girl wasn't probably stoked for her parents to tell her that. She'd probably like, in her mind, she's like, no, I would way rather you guys just buy me the car, buy me the phone. She now says later in life, though, like she's grateful for that experience. She also then went on to say, she's like, oh, and we have, she goes, it's interesting because in our own family, there's an uncle that has a ton of money and his kids are now into their 30s and 40s and really struggle in life because they've always been provided for. And she goes, and then we have a cousin who they're very wealthy and the mom and dad drive very nice cars, have a beautiful home, but their kids they totally have the money to provide all of their kids whatever they want. And their kids drive very, very normal, basic cars because the kids have to pay for them. The kids pay for their cell phones if the kids want to go to school. And so it's like, and it's obviously up for every family to decide. However, the one thing that holds true in anything in life is necessity can make a lot of things happen.
I think too, what I'm seeing in our own kids and I'm seeing out in the world is on the outset, our kids are not like excited to like go out and work that day and go out and like hustle and, have to have the grit. Make it happen. But it's like at the end of the day, they hold themselves a little taller. They feel really good about their efforts that day. And they just have more confidence in who they are and what they can do.
Yeah, that's so true. It's almost like you owe it to your kids and we owe it to our kids to put them in a circumstance or a situation that would allow them to occur for themselves as very capable and confident. Mm-hmm. Like no one actually, I think all of us we feel like on the surface we want to be entitled. Like right now, yeah, it would feel pretty good if someone just came to me and go, dude, I got you. I'll cover your truck payment. I'll cover your house payment. I'll cover your like bills of your business. There's a part of me that's like, yeah, please do that. But I know that would be very short-lived before I would start feeling like not great about myself. And I wouldn't do anything to like create or affirm an identity of I'm a powerful creator and I'm capable and I can do hard things. And so I think that's, yeah, super insightful. So not only are we robbing our kids, I think, of the ability to learn, maybe to work and to make sacrifices and like not have instant gratification, I think sometimes we've also robbed our kids of having the opportunity to have an identity of being a powerful, capable person that takes initiative and being able to like, yeah, feel good about their contributions at the end of the day or a week or at the end of the summer.
I'd like to shift. This is like in the same vein, but this is another conversation that we had a couple of weeks ago that I'd seen someone post this. I don't even know this person on with Facebook, but this popped up for me and I shared it with Chris and I was like, ooh, this is so interesting. Again, as our teenagers are getting older and getting that age where it's like they're going to start moving out and starting their own lives. We've been thinking like, how can we support them in doing this? And I'm going to read like just a bit of it here, what I saw on Facebook by this woman named Jessica Long. And I'm not saying Chris and I are like, 100% on board and agree with this, but it's like, it did have us start thinking too, because how should it? So she's saying she and her husband have shifted their mindset from everyone for themselves to we actually don't want our children starting from scratch. We literally view it as our duty to provide with their involvement, dwellings, businesses, and even spouses for them. She goes on to explain that a little bit later, but she says, historically, boys learned their father's trade and took over family businesses. The idea that an 18-year-old is set loose to find their own way and build their own empire was a lie purposely interjected into society. We want our sons to join my husband's business. There is no starting from the absolute bottom rung. Our goal for our children is to let them live at home for as long as they need and then hopefully be able to provide them with their own suite or home when they get married. The elite love the idea of the entire family separated, having 10 different mortgages and 10 different utility bills and no support. Also, people don't know how to live with other people anymore. There's a lot of rubbing elbows when you live together, and it's hard to build character.
It's hard, but
but it builds character. Yes, sorry. That was important. And then one other little bit, I'm going to fast forward a little bit. Talking about her daughters, she said, we also want to hold our girls close to us as they get older. I truly believe girls were meant to go from their father's covering to their husband's covering, and that they were not meant to flail around for 10 plus years somewhere in between both worlds, because this leaves them vulnerable and defenseless. Other cultures are not throwing their cherished girls out into the world to make their way. That was another idea the elites ran with in Western society. Anyway, she goes on to say more, but I just found that take, it was maybe a new take for me that I don't hear a lot of people talking about. I found it so thought-provoking. And again, Chris and I we're not like, oh yeah, we should do that or we shouldn't do that. But I'm like, whoa, that's something to think about. Like, I know as the world has changed, it's like harder and harder for kids to start out. Like we were able to buy a house 6 months after we got married and I was 20. I don't see people being able to do that as easily now. So it really does have us thinking like, what does that look like, us supporting our kids as they get older, and what do we want to do for them? And I don't know, just an interesting conversations that I want to have right now. So it's like we kind of know what to expect and we can like keep our kids, I don't know, support them as much as we can, but in a way that's like empowering and not like creating entitlement.
Yeah. That is an interesting thought. Like what's the fine line between empowerment and entitlement? And so much of like our mission behind Family Brand has always been, how can we, Melissa and I, how can we be as intentional as we can about designing a life that we really love for us and our family? And if you're gonna, and I believe if you're gonna create a life you love, it will be because you've designed it to the best of your ability. You haven't just like let it happen. So from the very beginning, I think Family Brand for us was like, let's not just let the world define our lives and decide what we're known for. Let's take a proactive stance on deciding what we want to be known for as a family and what we want our family to look like. And then I think that was the big part of the mission of like, let's share this with other families. And so again, whether it's having conversations around like, what is our approach to raising children around money and jobs and what they pay for or what we pay for. And again, what the cool thing is, you get to design it and it gets to be your philosophy that works for your family. But what I would say is like, my encouragement would be to design the philosophy, because you will have a philosophy one way or the other. It'll either be the world's philosophy that your family's adopted that works for you or it doesn't, or it'll be like one that you, and then with this thought-provoking, stance that this family's taken of like, oh, should we also start designing a philosophy and thinking about what we want the next chapter of our family to look like when our kids are grown? Do we want to the thought had never even occurred to me until Melissa read me that article of like, every one of my kids could probably come work in my business if they wanted to. We could look at it like a family business. Not that we necessarily will or anyone would want to, but it's just never even thought about that.
Yeah.
Maybe we want to buy more land and like build a family compound and like, hey, anyone, no one has to, but if you want to, you could come. And maybe every one of our kids is like, all 5 of our kids are like, no, I want to go live in a different country internationally. I mean, Melissa and I get to go visit them a lot, but it's just like, yeah. And obviously you can't force any of this, but that's not an excuse to not do everything in your power to at least be as intentional in designing it as you can.
Yeah, I love that you tied a little bow on it right there. I think that was perfect. It's like, it is all about intentionality, whether that's like right now when your kids are in your home, or maybe your kids are little and you can design it ahead of time, or maybe it's making course corrections and realizing, ooh, we do want to do some things different, or it's looking to the future, like in this woman's Facebook post, which is kind of where we're at right now. Yeah, what does the future look like? But it's all about that thread of like being intentional with it. So I think that's awesome.
One last thing I would share that's been I think an epiphany for me in this recently with our own kids is one of the principles that I also want to teach my children is like autonomy and freedom is earned, not just given. And so I think sometimes in life, it's like, I want more autonomy around money and my ability to spend money, but I'm not necessarily willing to do anything about it. I'm not willing to put a budget in place. I'm not willing to like work on my skills to have the ability to make more money, but I just want to be able to spend more. Well, it doesn't take you long as an adult to realize like, yeah, like awesome, but that's just wishful thinking. But I think sometimes with kids, and even my kids, I think sometimes they want the autonomy around money, around cell phone use, around curfews, like all of us naturally probably did as kids. And I think I haven't done the best job, and I'm going to do a better job of helping them see like, oh, you want that? Well, one, there's work that's involved, but two, if you want more autonomy around a certain thing, then you earn that. So like if one of my kids was, I don't know, let's say 16 years old and we'd provided a car that was our car, but they got to drive it, and they wanted more autonomy though around the car and how much we were willing to let them drive it, I wouldn't want to just be like, oh, you want to drive the car more? Okay, well just, here you go, you can drive it more. It's not teaching them anything about how it's going to actually work in the real world. It's like, oh, you want to drive the car more? Awesome. Or you want to have greater privileges and freedoms around the car? Perfect. Why don't you pay for the car insurance every month? And it's like, well, I don't want to do that. It's like, well, yeah, I get it. But to teach people that you can just have both, I think is really setting our kids up for failure. Or if one of our kids is like, well, I'd love to renegotiate my curfew. I'd love to have some more autonomy around my curfew. Now, again, you at the end of the day get to decide like if that even works for you or not. But what my temptation, I think, has been, or my tendency has been in the past, has either been like, no. Or just like a blanketed like, okay, fine, you can stay out 30 minutes longer on the weekend. But I don't think that's serving them in either scenario. It's like, oh, you want more autonomy around your curfew? Oh, okay. Show me how you're going to use your time more wisely. Because like what we're really having a conversation around is like their autonomy around time. But I think I'm failing them by not helping them see that they can earn that. So if one of my kids is like, if you let me stay out 30 minutes longer on Friday, I will be more productive and I'll work harder around the house on Saturday. And it's like, oh, okay. Or if one of my kids, like, and again, age appropriate, was like, hey, I want to have way more autonomy around my phone. Maybe I don't want to turn my phone in at 9 p.m. anymore or 8 p.m. or whatever it is, right?
These are all hypothetical. These
Yeah.
have never happened in real life.
It's like, oh, you want more autonomy around your phone? Oh, well, interestingly enough, and I had this guy, you actually want more autonomy around my phone that I let you use every month because it's my phone. And they're like, didn't think that was very funny. I thought it was hilarious. They're like, yes. I was like, well, then let's work to make it partially your phone. I'm like, well, how would that happen? I'm like, you start paying for your phone bill every month or pay for half of it. And again, well, I don't want to do that. It's like, oh, okay, well then you won't get the autonomy. But like, that's just like a life principle. Like autonomy, freedom to do things, freedom to have things, the freedom to use your time, like that's earned. There's sacrifices that have to be made, right? Or, I know we're not the only parent that deals with like snacks and food. Listen, I never want to create scarcity around food with my kids because we don't need to. We're in a position to buy food and have a pantry full of snacks. And, every parent knows this. It's kind of maddening though. You go buy like a more expensive snack and there's like 30 of these, whatever snacks they are. And you look in there the next day and they're gone. It's like, you guys ate 30 of those?
Savages.
Yeah. It's like, now, so sometimes we'll be like, okay, you can have of these kinds of snacks, you can have a certain number of them. And if one of our kids is like, well, I don't want to have one of those a day. I want 5 a day. Oh, I could make that happen easily for you. Really? Yeah. You pay for half of them. Again, well, I don't want to do that. That's always but that's how it works. And I think that is such a useful thing for kids to start realizing at a young age. It's like, if I want it, there's going to be a part of me that has to earn it. And if I'm not willing to do what it takes to earn it, then maybe I don't really want it. And so that's been another useful frame that I'm going to start helping my kids see, I think, and do a better job of just like, yeah. Because the easy answer to me too is always I could just shut them down. No, you're going to do what I say with your phone. No, your curfew is going to be this. No, you can have this privileges with the car. Or no, you can only eat these mini snacks. I don't think that's useful either. So it's not useful to shut it down. It's also not useful to just like give it freely, but for them to start to see that like they can be part of it.
So it's 2 parents who are in the trenches.
Experimenting.
I hope that you are having an amazing summer and take the time this week to think about like, yeah, what do we think about all this? Do we have a plan in place for cars and gas and, our kids just growing up? Are there any course corrections we want to make? And yeah, have an amazing week.
And I would say best of luck with all of this.
Good luck.
All right, so that is it for today's episode of the Family Brand Podcast.
But before you go, we have something fun for you.
Yeah, like if you've ever wondered, okay, so how's our family culture actually doing? We've got an incredible quiz for that.
Good news, it's quick, it's free, and when you're done with that quiz, we'll even email you this awesome PDF full of practical ways to strengthen your family culture right away.
So all you have to do is go to familybrand.com/quiz, take the quiz, grab the PDF.
We'll see you next time.